Ulfenkarn, the Cursed City. Many know its name, especially in recent times, but there are few who remember its ancient title, as well as its even more ancient guardians. Welcome to the Mournhold Curse Registry, Curse Record number 508A and 508B, the account of the Tomb Knights Colossi and the Hounds of Radukar. The Tomb Knights Colossi are tall, silent undead constructs who have patrolled the city and its perimeter for untold aeons. Some say they were constructed by the combined efforts of the city's original three noble families, as a sort of mechanized private militia, although other legends suggest that the Tomb Knights were here long before that. Those who have encountered the Knights have described them as 10-foot-tall titans that make little to no noise when they move, despite their clunky armor, and their skin, or lack thereof, appears to be embalmed in some sort of way, and now resembles animate stone. Here we can see an artist's rendering of how the Colossi might have originally looked in the Age of Myth, rendered here by master artisans Aaron McClellan and Andrea Lamb, collectively known by the pseudonym Cobra Mode, who are sponsoring the production of this curse record. Today we will be taking this rendering and updating it to reflect the changes made by the current regime of Lord Radukar. As you may well know, when the demon prince Slann invaded the city of Mournhold back in the Age of Chaos, the vampire Radukar arrived to save the city from the demons. He successfully repelled them and became the city's new ruler all in one swift stroke, although what most do not know is exactly how the Tomb Knights came under his service at this point. Some say it was an after effect of the Shyish Necroquake, when Radukar and his court were suddenly charged with an immense amount of necromantic magic, while others say the city's ruling council offered him a talisman of some sort to help control the Knights. In either case, now that Radukar has become the tyrant of Mournhold, or as it's now called, Ulfenkarn, both slaying its ruling council and converting all who opposed him into his undead army, he has seemingly converted a number of the Tomb Knights as well. To represent this on our scale models of the Hounds, we have decided to modify the original artist's rendering to something closer to the reports of the citizens who've encountered these titans in recent days. First and most importantly, we will be adding the wolf heads to the Colossi's pauldrons. From recent reports, this seems to be a standard feature across all of Radukar's Tomb Knights, and a large part of why the city's inhabitants have started calling these sentinels the Hounds of Radukar. Whether these wolf heads are merely decoration or some sort of second head of the creature that is able to bite and growl at its enemies varies from account to account. But it is this curse keeper's opinion that the heads are merely decoration, although with the necromantic powers of the city's current leadership, who can say really? Today we will also be adding a number of adornments to the Tomb Knights to represent various details present in at least 3 or more of the eyewitness accounts, including one of the knights having a gruesome-looking inhuman skull with no lower jaw, a tattered half-cape along one arm, as well as a variety of other strange features, including various bones, chains, and unique weapons that stood out in the reports. The story of applying color to these scale models is a long and painstaking one, although I will attempt to summarize it here for the sake of completion. Since no known colors have ever been present in any of the eyewitness reports, we started with a simple black and white rendering, using the zenithal technique, followed by some dark washes and light dry brushing, and then let the winds of magic inspire us from there. Many of the watercolor paintings commissioned by Radukar and his court feature deep reds, desaturated cyans, and pale bone colors as their starting point, so we used diluted contrast paints through an airbrush as a starting point to try to replicate this style. These also happen to be the iconic colors of the Ulfenwatch, so it is likely that we are at least close with our coloration here. This was a perfectly adequate rendering of the hounds, and we should have stopped at this point. But something about these models drove us onward, down a path we would soon regret. Hi everyone, Dana here, out of character, and I'd like to just tell you a little bit about Cobra Mode Miniatures, the sponsor of today's video. As you may know, I'm extremely excited about the new Warhammer Quest game, Cursed City, and I wanted to get started making videos about the city as well as converting figures for it right away, even though I wouldn't be able to get a copy of it for a few weeks from now. So I was very lucky that Andrea Lamb, one half of the Cobra Mode Miniatures team, contacted me a few weeks ago and offered to sponsor this video so long as I included one of the miniatures from her and her husband Aaron's lovely Patreon in the video. This was quite perfect for me as the Tomb Colossus miniature from the Patreon fit in perfectly with the design and lore of Cursed City and would make an excellent stand-in for the Korsargi Night Guard that are supposed to be Lord Radukar's elite bodyguards. Like all of Cobra Mode's models, Adil the Tomb Colossus comes pre-supported, along with stats for use in a 5th edition game, and some existing lore that inspired the story I came up with for them in the Warhammer setting in this video. Cobra Mode makes all kinds of different miniatures, but their main bread and butter is anthropomorphic creatures and other non-humanoids that are inspired by a number of real-world cultures instead of the generic medieval fantasy that we get so often. According to Andrea, the quality is the most important thing for Cobra Mode, and it's very important to both her and Aaron that the sculpts on their Patreon stand alone as art pieces, as well as fitting in and making sense narratively within the Cobra Mode universe. For example, the Tomb Knight Adil is a dried out corpse full of battle damage and decay, but he also has this really noble pose and bearing, as well as a number of narrative details to him that make him more than just a run-of-the-mill zombie. Everything they make has a lot of attention and detail like this, from texture to silhouette to just being something interesting to look at on a shelf, and I think a lot of their work has a really interesting charm to it. So if you're interested in printing out your own Tomb Knight or any of Cobra Mode's other offerings, head on over to their Patreon or their My Mini Factory store and take a look what they have on offer. Links are down in the description. And now let's get back to Ulfenkarn and the tale of the Cursed City. Beyond the basic color gradient, we used a simple brush to highlight all of the colors using the substance known only as pale sand, as well as a few more diluted inks and contrast paints to try to deepen the shadows. But in the end, the results just didn't quite look right. The colors resembled the iron golems of far-off Kaman, rather than the iconic colors of the Ulfenwatch. We even added a scenic base to each of the figures in an effort to potentially bring the colors more into balance, but even so, the colors didn't look quite right to this Curse Keeper's eyes. We had a revelation around this point in the process that warm colors just don't exist anymore in the Cursed City. All of the yellows and warm reds, oranges, just don't look quite right on the models because they don't really exist anymore in the city itself. We attempted to remedy this issue with pale blue highlights and cool purple washes, but the figures ended up looking a bit too messy. It was as if these figures didn't want to be painted. After days of trying different things to get these figures to look quite right, we entered a fugue state one night, applying various colors and inks and highlights. It's very hard to remember what happened that night. But upon awakening, we found that the models were covered in a strange two-tone ink-type substance. It felt incredibly wrong, but also correct, in a way. Until we receive further reports with more accurate descriptions of these colossi, perhaps it is fitting that they just have a more impressionistic look to them, with the deep magenta glow of the city bearing down upon them. For now, these figures will be kept within the Curse Registry vaults, along with a copy of this recording. It is currently unknown what will happen to the Tomb Knights should the Lord Radukar eventually be deposed. But it is this Curse Keeper's wish that these ancient titans will one day return to their noble status as the rightful guardians of the city of Mournhold. Thus concludes the account of the Tomb Knights Colossi and the Hounds of Radukar, for now at least. As is customary, we would like to extend our deepest thanks to both the noble artisans at Cobra Mode, as well as our wealthy patrons over at the Royal Howl Archivist Guild for funding this research. In this recording, we have been instructed to especially thank Dr. Null, Jenny Annette, and Chase P. For more details on either of these organizations, or to secure yourself a copy of the Tomb Knight Colossi known only as Adil, links have been included down in the description below, whatever that means. Until next time, we hope this recording reaches you safely, and may you hold your curses gently in the dark.